I've done things I'm not proud of, but nothing that deserved what I went through in cell block E. I got sent to Redgate Penitentiary in November 2019. Medium security. 5-year sentence for aggravated assault. Nothing fancy, just me, a busted bar fight, and a bad lawyer. Redgate was old, built sometime in the 1930s, mostly concrete and rust, with that permanent mildew smell that soaks into your clothes and skin. They stuck me in E block, low visibility, short-staffed, and mostly forgotten. It was the oldest part of the prison, barely lit and weirdly cold even during the day. The guards called it the Tomb. I thought it was just a nickname. On my first night, my cellie, Ramirez, gave me the lowdown. You hear shit in the walls, don't answer. You see shadows move, ignore 'em. And whatever you do, don't look into cell 6 when the lights flicker. I laughed. Thought he was messing with the new guy. But he didn't crack a smile. Just stared at me with eyes that had seen too much. The lights in E block never stayed on properly. They'd buzz and dim like they were struggling to stay alive. You'd be brushing your teeth or taking a leak, and suddenly the whole block would go dark for a second, long enough to feel like someone was standing behind you, breathing down your neck. The first time it happened to me, I was in the shower. Steam everywhere. Then, click, the lights went out. Silence. No water noise. No echoes. Just a sudden dead stillness. And then, something moved. A soft, wet slap against the tile. Like bare feet. But it wasn't coming from any of the other stalls. It was coming from the ceiling. I didn't want to look up. Every part of me screamed not to. I told myself it was just my mind messing with me, that maybe the pipes shifted or something. But then I heard it again, slap, 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 directly above my stall. I glanced up. Through the thinning steam, I saw fingers. Long, pale fingers curling over the edge of the concrete ceiling vent, like someone was hanging upside down inside the duct, gripping it. I stumbled back, soap still in my hair, heart in my throat. The lights flickered back on a second later, and the fingers were gone. No sound. No sign anything had ever been there. I didn't finish that shower. I didn't even dry off properly. Just threw on my clothes and bolted back to my cell. Ramirez didn't ask why I was shaking. He didn't have to. He just muttered, "Yeah. It saw you." That night I couldn't sleep. Every noise, the shuffle of guards, the drip of pipes, the snoring from other cells, sounded too loud, too intentional. Like it was all part of something watching me. And then I heard a voice. A whisper. Coming from the vent above our cell. 6. Come see 6. Come see what waits in 6. I sat up in bed, hard hammering. Ramirez was already awake, staring at the ceiling. "You listened," he said, voice hollow. "God help you, man. You listened." I tried to laugh it off, pretend I was dreaming. But the next day, things got worse. Someone in cell 6 had scratched a message into the wall across from us overnight. The guards swore nobody had been moved in there, it was empty. But the message was fresh, carved deep and jagged. It read, "I can see you." Cell 6 was 3 doors down from ours. Always locked. No inmate had been housed there in years, at least that's what the guards said. But every night since the writing appeared, I'd hear something from behind that door. Not talking. Not screaming. Breathing. Deep, raspy inhales, like someone sucking air through a collapsed lung. You could feel it in the concrete. A low, vibrating groan that settled into your bones. I told Ramirez I wanted to tell the guards. Maybe someone was in there, maybe they were hurt. But he grabbed my arm so hard it left a bruise. "You think they don't know?" he hissed. "You think they don't hear it too? That door's welded shut for a reason." I didn't sleep again that night. I laid awake, eyes fixed on the flickering ceiling light, listening. The breathing didn't stop. It got louder. Closer. And then it changed. It turned into laughter. Dry wheezing, like the sound of sandpaper against a coffin lid. At exactly 3:13 a.m., the block went dead silent. Lights out. Fans off. Total blackout. Then I heard my name. Not shouted. Not whispered. Spoken. Clearly. From inside cell 6. Alex. One word. My name. Like it had been waiting for me. I sat frozen, eyes straining in the dark. Something shifted at the end of the block. A shadow moved past the bars of cell 6. I told myself it was my imagination. That I was hallucinating. But the next morning, Ramirez was gone. Not transferred. Not in the hole. Gone. The guards acted confused, said he must have slipped during the night, but they didn't sound surprised. They put a fresh mattress on his bunk. Told me I'd have a new cellie by the weekend. And when I got back from mess hall that afternoon, I found a gift on my bed. A crude, hand-carved wooden finger. Wrapped in a strip of Ramirez's bedsheet. I didn't touch the finger. Just stared at it, heart pounding. It was too real. Detailed knuckles, tiny nail, even the crease at the joint. Whoever made it knew what they were doing. I wanted to believe it was a prank. Some twisted initiation for new guys. But there was a problem with that theory. Nobody knew Ramirez was gone yet. Not the other inmates. Not the block guards. No whispers, no jokes, no smirks. Everyone just looked uneasy. Like they were pretending nothing had happened, even though we all felt the same thing crawling under our skin. That night, the new cellie showed up. White guy, mid-40s, wiry, with eyes that twitched too much and a face that looked like it hadn't smiled in a decade. Name was Kern. He didn't talk much. Dropped his bag, sat on the bunk, and stared at the vent above us like it owed him money. Around midnight, I heard him muttering. I leaned down from my top bunk. "What did you say?" He didn't answer. Just kept whispering. Over and over. "Don't look at the door. Don't look at the door. Don't look at the door." I rolled over, thinking maybe he was a psych case. Nothing new in E block. But then the lights flickered. And stayed off. The hallway outside our cell glowed faintly. Emergency lights, red and pulsing, like a heartbeat. And that's when I saw the shadow at the end of the block. Not a person. It was too tall, too thin. Shoulders hunched like it had to bend to avoid scraping the ceiling. It moved slowly. One long arm dragging along the bars of each cell. Clink, clink, clink. I dropped down from my bunk and knelt beside Kern. "You see that?" I whispered. He didn't look at me. He just kept muttering, louder now. "Don't look at the door. Don't look at the door." The thing stopped in front of our cell. And for the first time, Kern looked up. And started screaming. Kern's scream wasn't like anything I'd heard before. Not a cry for help, not even pain. It was recognition. Like he'd seen something he thought he'd buried years ago, and it came back to claim him. I pressed myself against the far wall of the cell, trying not to breathe. The thing stood motionless outside our bars. Its shape was all wrong, bent, elongated, shoulders scraping the top of the cell block ceiling. Its head, or what I think was a head, tilted to the side like it was listening. Studying. Then it spoke. But not in words. It made a sound like teeth grinding together, a slow, rhythmic ch-ch-ch-ch-ch-k that set my feelings on edge. Kern was on the floor now, sobbing, face buried in his knees. And then, just like that, the emergency lights shut off. Total darkness. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. And in that pitch black, I heard it slide something under the door. Tap. A moment later, the lights flickered back on. We were alone. Kern hadn't moved. His lips were still moving, but no sound came out anymore. I looked down at the cell door. Something had been shoved through the narrow gap at the bottom. It was a photograph. A Polaroid. Black and white. Faded around the edges like it had been soaked in water. It showed me. Sleeping in my bunk. And standing beside the bed was a blurry, towering figure. Staring straight into the lens. I didn't sleep. Not after that. Not even with the lights on. Kern stayed curled in the fetal position, murmuring nonsense. The guards didn't check in. No head count, no patrols, like E-Block had just been cut off. I tried yelling for help a few times, banging on the bars, but it felt useless. No one came. The next thing I remember is waking up on the floor. I was cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your marrow. The lights were on. Normal this time. And my bunk was made, as if I'd never been there. Kern was gone. Again, no announcement, no noise in the night. Just gone, like Ramirez before him. I checked the door. Still locked. And the Polaroid? Gone too. Replaced by something else, a strip of cloth, wedged in the same spot. I picked it up. It was from Kern's shirt. Same grayish uniform, but soaked in something dark. Rust brown. Dried blood. That's when I noticed the mark on my forearm. 3 shallow scratches, lined up perfectly, running from my wrist to my elbow. I hadn't had them before. They weren't deep enough to hurt, just enough to sting and itch. Like something had wanted to leave a signature. The guards finally showed for morning chow. I tried to ask them what the hell was going on, what happened to Kern, where Ramirez was, but they looked through me like I didn't exist. One of them, the younger one, hesitated before moving on. When I asked again, his face changed. Like he was about to say something. Then he whispered, "Don't ask about E-Block. Just survive it," and walked away. That day I snapped. I refused to go back to the cell after dinner. Told the guard I wanted to be moved, said I'd take solitary. Hell, I begged for solitary. To my surprise, they agreed. "Fine," the guard said. "You want out of E-Block? You got it." They marched me to the hole, a 6 by 8 foot concrete box in the sublevels, no lights, no window, no sound. Just me and the dark. At first, I thought I'd gotten lucky. Anything was better than cell 6. But the silence down there was different. Thicker. It felt like sound couldn't escape. Like the dark wasn't just around me, it was watching me. Moving inside my lungs. About 4 hours in, I started to hear scratching. Faint at first, like a rat in the walls. Then heavier. Fingernails on cement, dragging slowly. Circling the cell. I backed into a corner and waited. Then I saw them. Eyes. Just 2 pale blue circles glowing faintly in the pitch black, floating in the center of the room. No face. No body. Just eyes, wide open, unblinking. And then, a whisper. "You left the door open." I screamed. I don't remember what happened next. Maybe I passed out. Maybe something made me forget. But when the cell door opened hours later, the guard who found me stepped back like he'd seen a corpse. "You weren't supposed to be let down here," he said. "What? We haven't used this hole in years," he muttered, staring at the scratches on the inside walls. "Since..." He stopped. Then quietly, like he didn't want anyone to hear. "Since the last guy from cell 6 disappeared. After they pulled me from the hole, they didn't send me back to E-Block. They moved me to the infirmary for observation. That was fine by me. It was quiet, sterile, and most importantly, no vents. Just smooth ceilings and fluorescent lights. I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about those eyes. That voice. "You left the door open." What door? I got some answers 2 nights later. A nurse came in during the graveyard shift. Older lady, maybe mid-60s, kind face, smoker's cough. Said her name was Hilda. She checked my vitals, then paused before walking out. "You saw it, didn't you?" she asked without turning around. I didn't answer. She closed the door and pulled something from her coat. A small, battered notebook. Leather-bound. Stained with time and use. This was left behind by a former guard. Worked E-Block back in the 80s. Went missing. They found this hidden in the ceiling of cell 6. She handed it to me. Inside were page after page of entries. Names, dates, sketches, frantic handwriting. Notes about the thing that haunted E-Block. One entry chilled me to my core. "It comes through the vents. Follows scent. Trauma is its trigger. Looks for the broken. The forgotten. Another. The more people vanish, the stronger it gets. Ye block is the mouth. Cell 6 is the throat. The hole is its stomach. And then, my name. Scrawled in the margin, circled in red ink. Alex M., 2019. Open the door. I dropped the notebook. Backed away from it like it had burned me. How did it know my name? I whispered. Hilda just stared at me, her eyes sad and tired. Because, she said, you listened. That's how it begins. I begged not to go back. Told the infirmary staff I was suicidal. Told them I'd swallow anything I could get my hands on if they sent me to E-Block again. Didn't matter. 2 days later, a guard came in and said, You've been cleared. Back to your cell. Not a cell. Your cell. Back to E-Block. Back to cell 9. Across from cell 6. It was like stepping into a grave. Everything felt colder. The hallway darker than I remembered. And cell 6, still welded shut, seemed to throb with a kind of invisible gravity. Like it was waiting for me. I thought about that notebook. About what the guard had written. The mouth. The throat. The stomach. I wasn't just in a cell. I was inside something. That night I tried not to sleep. Didn't matter. Around 3 a.m., the lights cut out again. Same red glow. Same humming silence. And then... tap. A sound from the door. This time, I didn't move. Didn't even breathe. But I didn't have to. The door creaked open on its own. Not cell 6. Mine. Just wide enough for me to see into the hallway. And standing there, backlit in that red pulse, was Ramirez. Or, what used to be Ramirez. His face was wrong. Like it had been copied by someone who'd only seen a face in a dream, stretched too long, eyes too wide, mouth pulled into a grin that didn't move. He didn't speak. He just pointed. At cell 6. And the door to cell 6? It was no longer welded shut. It was open. I should have run. Should have screamed, fought, done something. But all I did was stare, frozen, breath locked in my throat, as the door to cell 6 opened wider. Inside, it was blacker than black. Not just dark, hungry. The kind of dark that pulls at you like an undertow. I couldn't see the floor, the walls, nothing. Just a void. A space that shouldn't have existed. Ramirez, or the thing wearing his face, lowered its hand. Then it stepped backward into the cell, melting into the shadows like water down a drain. And then I heard it again. That voice. Right behind my ear, inside my skull, whispering. Come see what waits in 6. I don't remember moving. Don't remember deciding. I stepped forward. 1 foot. Then another. The second I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me. Total silence. But not alone. I felt them. Breathing around me. Watching. Thousands of eyes, just out of reach. And then, it showed me. Not with images. Not with light. With feeling. Pain. Isolation. Every raw memory I'd buried. Every face I'd hurt. It tore through me like static through a radio, flooding my mind with all the reasons I ended up here. And in the middle of that storm, something laughed. Not cruelly. Lovingly. Like I had finally come home. That's when I understood. It wasn't just a thing. It was a place. A wound in the world that fed on people like me. Broken people. Forgotten people. People who'd slipped through the cracks. And now, I was part of it. I don't know how long I've been here. Sometimes I hear guards walking by. Sometimes I see new faces in the dark. They don't see me. But I see them. And if you ever find yourself in Redgate, if you're ever walking past cell 6, don't listen. Don't ever listen. Because the door? It's open again. And something inside is waiting for you.